She saved the CEO $1 billion in 3 seconds. Then he said, "Now, fix my heart." It only took 3 seconds for Hannah Collins to spot the mistake, 3 seconds that saved Quan Enterprises $1 billion and put her face to face with the most powerful man in the building. She expected a cold "thank you" and to be sent back to her desk. Instead, Adrian Quan looked her straight in the eye and said, "Now, fix my heart." She thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. The rain had been falling all morning, soft but relentless, coating the glass towers of Midtown Manhattan in a silver haze. Hannah Collins sat at her small desk on the 34th floor of Quan Enterprises, her fingers flying over the keyboard, trying to finish the quarterly revenue projection before lunch. Her corner of the open office was quiet, and as usual. Junior analysts weren't exactly in the spotlight here. In fact, she often wondered if anyone upstairs even knew her name. The high-stakes meetings happened far above on the top floor, the one with frosted glass walls, leather chairs, and a view worth more than her annual salary, and that's when she saw it. At first, it was just a faint unease, the kind she'd learned never to ignore. Hannah squinted at the financial spreadsheet, running the numbers again. A decimal point in the wrong place, a misaligned formula, one number that didn't belong, and yet, if it stayed there, her eyes widened. That single error would inflate projected earnings by just enough to make the company greenlight an investment they couldn't afford. It was subtle, easy to miss, but it would collapse the deal months later, costing the company over $1 billion. Her heart thudded. Should she just report it to her supervisor? Wait for tomorrow's review? No. The investment team was meeting right now. The CEO himself was signing off within the hour. Hannah's decision was instant. She fixed the cell, printed the corrected pages, and half-ran, half-tripped toward the elevator, coffee cup still in hand. By the time the doors opened on the executive floor, her blazer sleeve was damp with spilled latte, and her pulse felt like it was trying to break out of her chest. 2 receptionists looked up from their desks. One raised an eyebrow at her breathless state. I need to see Mr. Quan, urgently." The eyebrow went higher. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's about the Goldmont acquisition numbers. There's an error." The other receptionist must have heard the tremor in her voice, because she pressed a button on the desk phone. "Mr. Quan? Someone from finance. Says it's urgent." A pause, then, "Send her in." The double doors opened to a space so immaculate it felt almost unreal. Dark wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the rainy skyline, and in the center, behind a massive desk, Adrian Quan himself. Up close, the man was even more intimidating than his legend suggested. Navy suit, silver tie, black hair swept neatly to the side, every movement deliberate. Hannah crossed the room, placed the papers on his desk, and said in one breath, "The spreadsheet for Goldmont had a decimal error. It would have signed off on a false revenue projection." "This is the corrected version." Adrian glanced at the pages, then at her. His eyes were sharp, measuring. "How long did it take you to spot this?" 3 seconds, she replied before she could think. Something in his gaze shifted, the faintest flicker of surprise. He leaned back, studying her, like she was a puzzle piece he hadn't expected to find. "You just saved this company $1 billion, he said finally. Hannah gave a nervous shrug. "I figured that was worth the elevator ride." For a moment, the corners of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. But his eyes carried the weight of someone who'd been holding too much for too long. And then he said something she didn't see coming. "Now, fix my heart." The words hung in the air, absurd against the quiet hum of rain on glass. Hannah blinked, sure she'd misheard. "I'm sorry?" "Not now," Adrian said, setting the papers aside. "But soon." She stood frozen, unsure whether it was some kind of dry joke or something else entirely. Before she could ask, he was already looking back at his computer screen, the audience dismissed. On the elevator ride back down, Hannah replayed the moment over and over. Fix my heart. What on earth did that mean? By the time she reached her desk, her coworker James was leaning over the partition. "Hey, what was that about? You just walked into the lion's den." "Nothing," Hannah said, sliding into her chair. "Just saving the company from financial ruin, casual Tuesday stuff." James laughed, shaking his head. "You're something else, Collins." She tried to brush it off, but for the rest of the day, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The next morning it became clear she wasn't imagining it. Hannah was going through her email when a shadow fell across her desk. She looked up to see him, the CEO of Quan Enterprises, standing there like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning, Miss Collins," Adrian said, the faintest trace of a smile playing at his lips. "Do you have a moment?" Every head in the open office turned. Hannah could almost hear the collective gasp. Sure? "I have a special project. I'd like you to join me," he said. "Something I believe only you can do." She blinked. "And what would that be?" Adrian's gaze was unreadable. "It's, complicated." Her mind raced. Was this about the Goldmont deal, some new analysis, or that strange thing he'd said yesterday? "Meet me upstairs at 3 p.m., he said simply, then turned and walked away, leaving an office full of stunned coworkers and one very confused Hannah Collins. She stared at her screen for a long moment. Special project. Only you can do. Fix my heart. Whatever was going on, she was about to find out. And something told her her life was never going to be the same. The clock on Hannah's desk seemed to tick louder as 3 p.m. crept closer. By 2:55, she'd already checked her reflection in the restroom mirror twice, brushed invisible dust from her blouse, and told herself repeatedly that this was probably just another spreadsheet thing. Probably. Still, her palms felt warm as she stepped into the executive elevator again. The ride was smooth, silent, and way too short. The receptionist gave her a look this time, less skeptical, more curious. "He's expecting you," one of them said. The double doors opened, and there was Adrian Quan, not behind his desk this time, but standing by the window, city skyline spilling behind him. He turned as she entered, his dark eyes locking on hers. "Ms. Collins?" "Mr. Quan," she replied, trying not to sound as nervous as she felt. "Come in. Close the door." She obeyed, and he gestured toward a smaller table in the corner. No desk, no formal barrier between them. It was unexpected. "I need someone I can trust," Adrian began, his voice calm but weighted. "And trust is rare here." Hannah blinked. "I appreciate that, but I'm not sure I understand. My role is pretty You're sharp, detail-oriented, and you don't freeze under pressure." He leaned forward slightly. "Yesterday proved that." The compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you. But what exactly is this project?" Adrian's gaze held hers for a beat before he spoke again. "It's twofold. First, there's a division of the company that's underperforming. I suspect the reports I've been receiving are incomplete. I want you to review the raw data quietly and tell me the truth. No one else." Hannah frowned. "Why me? Wouldn't your executive team—" "Because I can't trust my executive team with this," he said, cutting her off gently but firmly. "And because you see what others miss." She hesitated. "Okay. And the second part?" That faint smile appeared again, not unkind but mysterious. "That one's more personal." She tilted her head. "Personal?" Adrian didn't look away. "You remember what I said yesterday?" Her stomach flipped. "Fix my heart." "Yes, but I still don't know what that means." "You will in time." He stood walking toward a sleek cabinet and pulling out a slim black folder. "For now, start with this and keep it between us." Hannah accepted the folder, feeling its weight despite it being thin. All right. When do you need this by? As soon as you can, he said, walking her to the door. And, Hannah, she turned, this will require discretion and resilience. There was something in his tone, not quite a warning, but close. Back at her desk, she slid the folder into her bag before anyone could notice. James raised an eyebrow when she sat down. So? Did you get promoted or what? Something like that, Hannah said vaguely, already feeling the heat of unwanted curiosity from nearby desks. She waited until she was home that night to open the folder. Inside were raw transaction logs, internal memos, and what looked like unsigned contracts. The numbers were messy, disorganized, but one thing was clear: the division in question wasn't just underperforming, it was leaking money in ways that didn't make sense. Hannah spent hours sorting through them, jotting notes. The deeper she went, the more she realized someone was covering something up. By midnight, she'd only scratched the surface, but her gut told her this wasn't just bad management. It was intentional. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Adrian Kwan. Don't let it keep you up all night. She stared at the screen, then typed back, too late. There was a pause before his reply came. Adrian. I'll explain the other part soon. The other part. She didn't know whether to be intrigued or nervous. The next morning, Hannah was pouring coffee in the break room when she heard footsteps behind her. You found anything yet? Adrian's voice was low, almost casual. She turned, startled. You come to the break room? Sometimes, he said, accepting the mug she instinctively handed him. It's more interesting than the executive espresso machine, less pretentious. Despite herself, Hannah smiled. I'm still digging. But yes, there's something off. Good, he said, leaning slightly against the counter. I'll want your first impressions by Monday. But more importantly, he hesitated as if choosing his words. There's a charity gala tomorrow night. Black tie. I'd like you to come. Hannah blinked. Me? Why? You'll see. He set down his coffee and straightened. I'll have an invitation sent to your place, and don't be late. He walked out, leaving her staring at the doorway. James walked in seconds later, whispering, What was that? I honestly have no idea, Hannah said, though her heart was still racing. Saturday evening arrived far sooner than she'd have liked. She'd borrowed a sleek navy dress from her sister, paired it with modest heels, and pulled her hair into soft waves. As she stepped into the grand ballroom, she realized she hadn't been this far out of her comfort zone in years. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over a sea of evening gowns and tuxedos. The soft clink of crystal glasses mingled with the faint scent of expensive perfume in the air. Waiters glided between guests with trays of champagne. And there he was, Adrian, in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, talking with a cluster of investors. He noticed her almost immediately, excused himself, and crossed the room. You clean up well, Ms. Collins, he said, offering his arm. Thank you. This is overwhelming, she admitted. That's the point, he replied, leading her toward a quieter corner. I need you to watch someone for me tonight. Watch? He subtly nodded toward a man across the room, early 50s. Expensive suit, easy smile. That's Daniel Lee, Senior VP in the division you're reviewing. I want to know who he talks to, how long, and about what. Hannah blinked. You brought me here to spy? Observe, Adrian corrected smoothly. And, enjoy the hors d'oeuvres while you're at it. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity. But something in his expression told her this was serious. So she played along, mingling just enough to blend in while keeping Daniel Lee in sight. An hour later, she caught something odd. Daniel slipping a small envelope to a woman in a silver dress. The exchange was quick, discreet. Too discreet. When she glanced back at Adrian across the room, his gaze told her he'd seen it too. With one quick look, they understood each other. No words, no signals, just the kind of silent agreement that comes when the stakes are high. He moved toward her, but before he could reach her, Daniel was suddenly at her side. Smiling warmly, Mara might have been in the background, but Daniel was the danger, standing right in front of me. "And you are?" Daniel asked, extending a hand. Hannah forced a polite smile, shaking his hand. "Hannah Collins. Finance." "Ah, finance. Always nice to meet the people who keep the rest of us in line," he said lightly. But his eyes were calculating. "Enjoying the gala?" he asked. "Yes, it's beautiful," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. Before she could say more, Adrian appeared, resting a hand lightly at her back. "Daniel, I see you've met my guest." Daniel's smile didn't falter, but there was a flicker of something. Curiosity? Suspicion? Before he excused himself. As soon as he was out of earshot, Adrian leaned close enough that only she could hear. "That envelope changes everything," he murmured. "And now we have to move fast." Hannah's pulse quickened. "Move fast? For what?" Adrian glanced toward the exit. "Before someone realizes you were never supposed to be here." Hannah didn't ask any more questions. Adrian's voice carried a quiet urgency that cut through the music and laughter of the gala. He guided her along the edge of the ballroom, away from the chandeliers and cameras, through a side door lined with velvet rope. They passed a corridor stacked with extra chairs and folded linens, then a doorway into a quieter hallway where the hotel's hum replaced the orchestra. "Which way?" she asked. "Service corridor to the left," Adrian said, checking over his shoulder. "The woman in silver. Did you see where she went after the handoff?" "Restrooms," Hannah said. Then she talked to a waiter. She kept checking her clutch like it was made of fire. Adrian's mouth twitched. "Good eye." They moved quickly. At the corner, Hannah stopped. "Wait. If I approach her, I'll look suspicious now, but if we catch her slipping up—" Adrian nodded. "We let her make the mistake, then we collect it." They took different angles at the end of the hallway near the restrooms. Guests floated in and out like glittering fish. Hannah watched the silver dress appear in a mirror's reflection first, then in full, sharp features, cool expression, clutch clamped under her arm. The woman scanned the corridor. She didn't notice Hannah standing near a decorative plant, pretending to scroll her phone. A waiter moved past with champagne. The woman in silver flagged him, took a flute, then reached into her clutch with her free hand. Something nearly slipped. She readjusted, her attention split, and in that tiny window, the clutch slipped from her elbow and hit the floor. A muffled gasp. Hers. The clasp popped open. The envelope slid out. Hannah didn't move. The woman crouched quickly, scooped the envelope and clutch, and hurried away with a tight smile at the waiter. She thought she'd recovered. She didn't see the small corner of the envelope that had bent, revealing a sliver of white with a printed logo, the Kwan Foundation crest. Hannah's eyes flickered to Adrian across the hall. He'd seen it, too. "Kwan Foundation?" she whispered when he rejoined her behind a pillar. "Why would that envelope have your family foundation's logo?" "We'll answer that once we have it," he said, already moving. "She's headed to the staff elevators." They picked up their pace. Not running, just threading through like they belonged in the back halls, as if they'd done it 100 times. The silver dress turned a corner, heels clicking, and pushed a button. She glanced around, impatient. As the doors opened, a delivery cart rolled by, blocking her view. When it passed, she was gone, elevator doors closing. "Next one," Adrian said, pressing the button. The second elevator arrived with a ding. Inside, it was stainless steel and too bright. Adrian hit a number, then another, then a key on the panel that only he could use. The elevator moved silently. "You knew about the staff elevators," Hannah said. "My mother used to coordinate these galas," he replied. "I used to fetch her lost phones and emergency hairspray from the car. I learned the hotel like a second home." Hannah almost smiled. "So you're not just a tuxedo. Under extreme circumstances, I can carry folding chairs." The doors opened to a basement hallway that smelled faintly of coffee and detergent. They stepped out just as the other elevator doors down the hall slid open. The woman in silver walked quickly toward the loading dock, head down, clutch tight. She didn't notice Hannah peel off to the left, cutting through a supply room to intercept. Adrian went the longer way around, looping wide. At the dock, a car waited, black sedan, engine purring. The woman handed the driver her clutch for a second to adjust her heel strap. The driver fumbled the clasp. The envelope slipped again, gravity doing Hannah a quiet favor. It slid to the ground and skated under the car. The woman cursed under her breath and bent, but the angle was bad. In that tiny moment, Hannah stepped forward, calm and helpful. "Here, I've got it." She crouched on the other side, reached under, fingers brushing paper and grit, and pulled out the envelope. Before the woman could take it, Hannah leaned in closer. For one heartbeat, her gaze met the woman's. Cool. Assessing. The stranger smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you." Hannah handed it over without a blink. No drama, just a small kindness between strangers. The woman slid into the car. The driver pulled away. Adrian appeared beside Hannah a second later. "You didn't take it." "I didn't need to." Hannah lifted her phone. Screen glowing. "I got the crest on video, timestamp, location, the handoff, enough to make her nervous, and—" She held up a tiny tearing of paper she'd palmed while pulling the envelope out. A sliver of the seal. Enough to match to the foundation's stationery if we get a sample. Adrian's eyes flickered with something like pride. "You think fast." 3 seconds, she said softly. "Sometimes that's all you get." A van door slammed in the distance. They turned to go. "Now what?" Hannah asked as they headed back inside. "Now we go somewhere no one expects us to be on a Saturday," Adrian said. "The office." "Tonight?" He looked at her. You wanted to know what fix my heart meant. We start by stopping whoever's trying to break it." They reached the valet. Adrian's car pulled up, sleek, understated, midnight blue. He opened the passenger door for her, his hand brushing hers lightly. Probably accidental, but warm enough to make her pulse skip. She told herself it was nothing. She wasn't sure she believed it. She hesitated only for a second, then slid in. The city blurred by as they drove. Bright signs, rain on the windshield, the rumble of traffic feeling strangely comforting. "Do you ever get used to this?" she asked, watching the streets. "Which part?" "Being watched. Being tested." Adrian exhaled through his nose, eyes on the road. "You don't get used to it. You choose who you let in, and you make peace with the rest." "Is that why you said it?" Her voice was quiet. "Fix my heart." He didn't look at her. "Partly." "Is it medical?" The question came before she could stop it. "I mean, if it is, A soft laugh escaped him. "No, not like that." But his hand stayed on the steering wheel a moment longer than necessary, knuckles pale, like there was another answer he wasn't ready to give. She turned her head to the window, catching his reflection in the glass. And for a second, neither of them looked away. "Oh," she felt her face warm. "Good. You seem relieved." "I'm allowed to be," she said, a little stubborn. Adrian's mouth curved. "Duly noted." They pulled into the underground garage of Quan Enterprises. It was mostly empty at this hour, the sound of their footsteps echoing as they crossed to the private elevator. The scanner beeped. Doors opened. The ride up felt longer than usual. On the executive floor, the lights were dim, city lights painting the walls a soft blue. Adrian keyed open a side door Hannah hadn't noticed before. Inside was a small room with a long table, a few chairs, and a locked cabinet. "War room?" she asked. "Quiet room," he said, unlocking the cabinet. "Sometimes the loudest places are the ones you control." He pulled out a small evidence bag and a portable UV lamp. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. He took the torn paper from Hannah and sealed it, labeling it with the date and time. "I'm going to pull foundation letterhead samples from last quarter," he said. opening a locked drawer with another key. If that envelope was printed using our stock, we'll know. Hannah watched him move, precise, focused. You've done this before. No, he said, but I've been forced to learn. What exactly is the foundation funding right now? She asked. What connects to the division I'm reviewing? Adrian paused. Then met her eyes. Cardiac devices, research. A new partnership proposal came through that division 6 months ago. It looked clean. It wasn't. Devices? She repeated. He nodded. If someone's using the foundation to launder internal payments through a charity vendor, it puts the entire company at risk. And my mother's name, she built that foundation from nothing. For a heartbeat, his gaze drifted past Hannah, as if he were seeing a different room entirely, one she wasn't in, filled with memories she'd never know. Hannah absorbed that, the weight of it settling like a stone. So this is about money. And it's about her. Without thinking, Hannah reached across the table, letting her fingers rest briefly over his. He didn't pull away. And it's about what happens when someone uses your best intentions against you, he said. He laid 2 sheets of letterhead under the lamp. The fiber glow matched the torn sliver in the bag almost perfectly. Hannah's throat tightened. It's ours. Which means someone with access supplied external stationery to an unauthorized party, Adrian said, or an internal party handed it off. Daniel, Hannah said, or the woman in silver. Maybe both, maybe neither, Adrian replied him, but a soft chime cut the quiet. The elevator at the end of the hall. Adrian glanced at the clock. No one should be here. He set the UV lamp aside. Hannah's pulse spiked. The footsteps were steady, unhurried, coming closer. A shadow passed the frosted glass of the outer door. A key fob beeped. The handle turned. Hannah looked at Adrian. Detta. He gave a small nod, his expression settling into something unreadable. The door opened. Daniel Lee stepped in, his tuxedo jacket thrown over one shoulder, loosened tie, a friendly smile that didn't touch his eyes. He stopped when he saw them. The smile froze. Oh, he said lightly. Working late. Adrian and Ms. Collins. What a surprise. Hannah didn't speak. She watched the corners of his mouth, the way his gaze flicked to the UV lamp, to the evidence bag on the table, back to their faces. Daniel's smile returned, thinner now. He closed the door behind him with a little click. I was about to say the same thing, he added. Because if you're here, then I suppose you already found something you weren't meant to see. Hannah's hand tightened around the edge of the table. And if I told you, Daniel said, voice still soft, that Ms. Collins has been sending files off-site, what would you say then? The room went very still. Adrian's eyes didn't leave Daniel's. Hannah felt the world tilt under her feet. The hum of the city beyond the glass was the only sound for several long seconds. Hannah stood frozen, Daniel's accusation hanging in the air like smoke. Sending files off-site? Adrian's voice was calm, too calm. Now that's a serious claim. Daniel loosened his tie further, moving toward the table as though he owned the space. It's not a claim, Adrian. It's fact. It flagged irregular transfers from her account 2 nights ago. Midnight activity, files tied to finance, and... He tapped the evidence bag with one finger. Oh, foundation records. Hannah felt her pulse in her ears. That's not possible, Hannah said sharply. I know what I've done and what I haven't. Adrian's gaze shifted between them, unreadable. Daniel, if this is true, I'll see the report myself. But you should know... His voice hardened just enough. I don't take kindly to fabricated evidence. Daniel's smile didn't falter, but there was a tightening in his jaw. Of course, I'm sure you'll handle it with your usual fairness. The subtext was sharp. Hannah realized with a cold twist in her stomach that this wasn't just about her, it was a test. For both of them. I'll send you the report in the morning, Daniel said, straightening. In the meantime, I'd suggest keeping certain people away from sensitive data. He turned to go, but paused at the door. Oh, and Adrian, Do give my regards to your mother." It was a simple sentence, but Hannah saw the way Adrian's fingers curled slightly at his side, the flicker in his eyes. When Daniel was gone, the air in the room seemed heavier. Adrian moved to the cabinet, locking the UV lamp away. "He's trying to bait you." "I noticed," Hannah said quietly. "He wants me to doubt you," Adrian continued. "He knows you're looking at his division. He knows you were at the gala. And now, conveniently, he has a reason to push you out." Hannah swallowed. "Then I guess the question is, do you doubt me?" The silence was brief, but felt like it stretched. "No," Adrian said simply. "If I did, you wouldn't still be standing here." Relief mixed with the leftover adrenaline in her chest. "So, what now?" "We get ahead of him," Adrian replied. "Tomorrow morning, I want you to come in early. We'll pull the server logs together, side by side, before he can touch them. If there's a forged trail, we'll see it." Hannah nodded, her mind already mapping out the steps. "And if it's clean, then we'll know exactly how far he's willing to go." The elevator ride down was silent until halfway to the garage, when Hannah spoke. "You didn't even ask me for a denial." Adrian looked at her, the faintest edge of a smile on his lips. "I didn't need one." The words caught her off guard. They carried weight, more than professional trust. She wasn't sure she was ready to unpack that, but it settled in her chest like a steady drumbeat. The next morning, Hannah arrived before sunrise. The building's lobby was quiet, security lights still dim. She rode the elevator alone to the 34th floor, where her badge gave her access to the server room, only because Adrian had updated her clearance. He was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, scanning lines of code on a large monitor. "You beat me," she said. "I never left," he replied without looking up. "Coffee's on the desk." She picked up the paper cup, warmed her hands around it. "So, what am I looking at?" "Access logs," he said, tapping a key. "Every file movement is stamped with a date, time, and location. If someone used your credentials, it'll show where and how." They worked in silence, scanning entry after entry. Hannah caught patterns, her actual work hours, the few times she'd logged in from home, and then there it was. 2 entries at 12:17 a.m., tagged to her ID, from an IP address she didn't recognize. "That's not mine," she said, pointing. Adrian's gaze narrowed. "It's internal, which means it came from somewhere inside this building. But at midnight?" He clicked deeper. The IP resolved to a terminal in a disused office on the 22nd floor. "No one's assigned to that room," Adrian said. "It's technically storage." Hannah's heart thudded. "So someone used my credentials on that machine." "Which means," Adrian said, closing the file, "we have a ghost." By mid-morning the floor was bustling. Daniel passed Hannah in the hall, his smile thin. "Hope you slept well, Ms. Collins." She didn't reply, but Adrian's voice came from behind her. "Daniel, your report. My office, now." Daniel turned smoothly. "Of course." Hannah didn't follow. She had her own task, finding out who had access to that 22nd floor office. She dug through the internal directory, cross-checking key card logs from the last week. One name appeared twice in the midnight hours. Ellen Park, a mid-level administrator in facilities. Hannah didn't know Ellen well, just enough to remember a quiet woman with a habit of avoiding eye contact. But why would facilities be touching finance files? She was still staring at the screen when James appeared at her desk. "You've been busy," he said. "Word is you were at the gala with the big boss." "Word travels fast," she muttered. "Faster than you think. Careful, Collins. People notice when the CEO starts pulling someone into closed-door meetings." She met his eyes. "People like Daniel?" James's smirk faded. "Exactly." By late afternoon, Adrian returned to her desk. "Walk with me." They took the elevator to the 22nd floor. The hallway was quiet, carpet slightly worn compared to the glossy upper floors. Adrian unlocked the unassigned office. Inside, the air was stale, the furniture covered in plastic. A single desk sat in the corner, its computer dark. Adrian booted it. "If Daniel planted something here, we'll know." It took time, but the system logs confirmed it. The midnight access had been made from this machine. The files were indeed copied to an external drive, but the actual device ID didn't match anything tied to Hannah. "She's clean," Adrian murmured, almost to himself. "Ellen Park," Hannah said softly. "Her badge shows up here at the same times." Adrian's brow furrowed. "If Ellen's working for Daniel, he's more reckless than I thought." "Or smarter," Hannah countered. "Using someone invisible makes it harder to trace." He looked at her. Something like approval in his eyes. "You're starting to think like him." "I'm starting to think like someone who wants to keep their job," she replied. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then his expression changed. Sharp, alert. "Security just spotted Ellen in the lobby. She's carrying a sealed case." Hannah's stomach dropped. "The drive?" "Let's find out," he said, striding toward the door. They reached the lobby as Ellen was stepping out onto the rainy sidewalk. Adrian didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to make her stop. She turned, eyes wide, clutching the case like it was part of her. "Mr. Kwan, I was just—" "Coming with me?" Adrian said evenly. "Now." She froze, then followed them back inside. Hannah walked behind, every instinct telling her this moment could blow the whole thing open. In the small conference room, Adrian closed the door. "Open it." Ellen's hands shook as she fumbled with the latch. Inside was a single portable hard drive, sleek and silver. "Where were you taking this?" Adrian asked. Ellen's voice was small. "Daniel said it was urgent. Just data for review." "What data?" Hannah cut in. Ellen hesitated. "Foundation contracts and internal audit files." Hannah felt her chest tighten. "That's everything we've been looking at." Adrian's gaze was unblinking. "Ellen, you understand this is theft." She shook her head quickly. "I didn't know. I swear, he told me you authorized it." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Leave the case, go home. We'll speak Monday." Ellen fled, the door clicking shut behind her. Hannah exhaled slowly. "So, now we have proof." "Now," Adrian said, his eyes still on the hard drive, "we have leverage." She met his gaze. "And what about Daniel?" Adrian's expression darkened. "Monday morning, he'll find out what happens when you try to frame someone under my roof." Hannah didn't doubt him. But as they stood there, the hum of rain outside, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, and that whatever was coming next would test them both in ways they hadn't yet imagined. Sunday evening settled over the city like a breath held too long. Hannah's apartment was quiet, except for the clicking of her laptop keys and the soft rain working the window. She had the drive Adrian confiscated mirrored to a secure folder, sorted by timestamps, names, and payments that didn't fit. Every pattern told a story. Every gap hinted at a hand smoothing mistakes flat. She paused, rubbed her eyes, then saved everything twice. A quick message to Adrian, "Ready for tomorrow." "Ready?" "I'll be early." His reply came instantly. "Me too. Bring your courage." She smiled despite herself and closed the laptop. She couldn't sleep long. Dawn arrived, blue and thin, and the building's lobby swallowed her at 6:45 a.m. Adrian was already there, hair neat, tie in his pocket, a paper cup warming his hands. He looked different without the armor of the office, less distant, more awake, somehow gentler at the edges. He handed her coffee and a quiet look that said he'd been turning the same thoughts all night. "Whatever happens upstairs," he said, "we stand together." It landed like a promise. She nodded, breathed, and followed him into the elevator, where their reflections hovered side by side in silence. The boardroom smelled like lemon polish and old victories. Daniel arrived with a leather folder and the easy smile of a man who never considered losing. Two directors sat at the far end, Mr. Roth and Ms. Patel summoned to observe. Adrian didn't sit. He stood at the head, calm, contained. "We'll be efficient," he said. "Ms. Collins, walk us through the irregularities." Hannah connected her laptop, projected the transaction map, and spoke with steady precision. Vendor shells, duplicate invoices, foundation stationary trails, the midnight access on the 22nd floor. Daniel's jaw tightened once, then reset, like a man practicing patience. "When you're done performing," Daniel said lightly, "I have something simpler. Audit logs show Miss Collins transferring files offsite at 12:17 a.m. 2 nights ago. Here are the screenshots." He slid pages forward. "My duty is to protect the company from internal breaches, even when the breach appears promising." Mr. Roth steepled his fingers. Ms. Patel's eyebrows lifted, not quite believing, not dismissing either. Hannah kept her breathing even. Adrian didn't look at her. He addressed the room, not the bait. "We checked the logs at dawn. Those entries came from an unassigned terminal downstairs, 22nd floor. Daniel didn't blink. And who used it? Ghosts?" Adrian slid a printed badge report across the table. Ellen Park's name sat in black and white. Silence circled. Daniel recovered fast. "Facilities often handles overflow scanning after hours. You know that. If Ms. Collins asked for help, that explains everything." "She didn't," Hannah said. "I didn't." Her voice stayed low even. Adrian tapped the hard drive case. "We retrieved this from Ms. Park before she exited with it. Foundation contracts, audit files, and a ledger tied to your division. If there's an explanation, give it now." Mr. Roth cleared his throat. "This is getting theatrical." Ms. Patel raised a hand. "Evidence first, personalities later." Hannah zoomed the projection to a pattern. Payments looping through a charity vendor. Returning as consulting, signed by a deputy in Daniel's group. Not a smoking gun, but enough smoke to choke a room. Daniel leaned back. "You're misreading lines from 1,000 transactions." Adrian didn't raise his voice. "Then explain the envelope you passed at the gala with the foundation crest." Daniel's eyes cooled. "Donor materials, networking, ask the development team." He looked at Hannah. "Or did you misplace your camera when you played detective?" Adrian stepped closer to the table, palms flat. "Enough." His gaze swept the directors. "I will place Daniel on administrative leave pending a third-party review. Ms. Collins will continue her analysis under my supervision. The drive remains secured." Mr. Roth frowned. "You don't have that authority alone." Adrian smiled, cool and patient. "Then call a vote. I'm not asking permission to protect the foundation my mother built." The room shifted at her mention. A subtle recalibration. Daniel seized it. "The problem, personal stake, bias." His voice softened. "Adrian, let compliance handle it, otherwise it looks like a vendetta." Silence held. Then Ms. Patel leaned forward. "I want the truth, not theater. Administrative leave is reasonable. Third-party review is necessary. And Ms. Collins stays." Mr. Roth shot her a look, then sighed. "Fine. Temporary leave, pending outcome." Daniel's smile barely moved. "Happy to cooperate." The words floated like oil on water. Adrian closed the meeting formally. Chairs scraped, papers gathered. Hannah didn't speak until the door clicked shut behind the directors. "He's not scared," she said. Adrian nodded once. "He will be." Daniel paused in the hallway, glanced through glass, and lifted fingers in a salute that promised trouble. They didn't celebrate. Adrian sent the drive to legal and the logs to an outside firm. Then he walked Hannah to the quiet room, where the city's noise turned distant. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, then shook her head. "I hate that he said my name like that, like I'm disposable." Adrian stood close enough that she felt steadier without touching. "Not in my company." He hesitated, then added softly, "Not to me." The words landed heavier than the room allowed. She looked away, exhaled, and found a small smile. Good, because I have 3 questions that won't stop burning. Ask, he said. She lifted a finger. 1? Why me, really? He answered without flinching. Because you don't flinch. 2, the foundation. Who's the woman in silver? Adrian's jaw set. A lobbyist who thinks everything is a transaction. 3, Hannah said, steady now. What did you mean by fix your heart? He exhaled, gaze drifting to the skyline. My father built numbers. My mother built trust. I inherited both and lost one. The heart here is the promise behind our name. Somewhere it calcified. I need someone enough to break it open. The door buzzer sounded once, sharp and unexpected. The buzzer echoed once more. Adrian's eyes flicked to the small monitor on the wall. A camera feed lit up. The reception area outside the executive floor. Hannah leaned in. What is she doing here? The woman in silver. Same perfect hair, same cool expression she wore at the gala. She was talking to the receptionist, holding a slim black folder. She doesn't have an appointment, Adrian murmured. Then why let her up? Hannah asked. He pressed a button. Send her in, he told the receptionist. Hannah's head whipped toward him. Are you serious? She's here for a reason. Let's hear it from her. The elevator dinged. Soft footsteps approached. The woman stepped in like she owned the air. Mr. Kwan, Ms. Collins. Her voice was smooth, controlled, with just enough warmth to sound polite, but not friendly. Adrian didn't offer his hand. What do you want, Mara? Hannah filed the name away. Mara. I thought we should talk privately, Mara said, glancing at Hannah as though testing how far private could stretch. You can speak in front of her, Adrian replied. That's bold, Mara said, her lips curving slightly, considering she's the reason Daniel's career is hanging by a thread. Hannah folded her arms. Daniel framed me. If you're here to defend him, Mara laughed softly. I'm not here to defend anyone. I'm here to offer a trade. Adrian's tone flattened. We're not trading. You haven't heard what it is yet. Mara set the black folder on the table. She opened it slowly, revealing printed emails. Foundation letterhead, Adrian's signature, and numbers Hannah didn't recognize. Hannah stepped closer. These aren't real. They're convincing enough, Mara said, enough to create a scandal that even your board can't ignore. Adrian's jaw tightened. Where did you get these? Does it matter? Mara replied smoothly. What matters is what I want in return for keeping them buried. Hannah's stomach twisted. Blackmail. Mara smiled. Such an ugly word. I prefer negotiation. Adrian leaned back slightly. And your terms? Drop the review on Daniel's division, she said. Publicly clear him. And, her gaze slid to Hannah, remove her from anything related to the foundation. Hannah felt heat rush to her face. This is about me? Oh, my dear, Mara said lightly. It's always about who's standing too close to the king. Silence held for a beat. Then Adrian rose. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Mara, he said without turning, you've been circling my family for years. You've sent deals. You've sent Daniel. Now you're here yourself, he faced her. But you've made a mistake. You think I'm afraid of losing. Mara's smile faltered for the first time. Adrian nodded toward the folder. Leave it and go. Her brows lifted. You're refusing? Yes, Adrian said. And if those forgeries appear anywhere, I'll make sure the world knows exactly who delivered them to my office. Mara's eyes hardened. She closed the folder, picked it up, and stood. You've just made things complicated, she said softly. I excel at complicated, Adrian replied. Mara's gaze lingered on Hannah. Be careful, she said. Not everyone survives proximity. Then she left. Heels clicking like a countdown. The door shut. Hannah exhaled, tension spilling out all at once. Why didn't you take it? She asked. We could have bought time. No, Adrian said. That's what she wants, to keep us playing defense. We move forward. Hannah looked at him, searching for cracks. You're sure? I'm sure, he said. But it means we have to move faster. Daniel's not just working alone. He's part of something bigger. He turned toward the locked cabinet, pulling out a slim, encrypted drive. I've been collecting my own files on Mara for years, Adrian said. Half the board thinks she's just an aggressive fundraiser. She's more than that. She's a broker. People, money, influence. Daniel is one of her pieces. Hannah frowned. And the foundation is her way in? Yes, Adrian said. And if she gets control of even a fraction of it, she'll use it to buy leverage we can't undo. Hannah's voice was quiet but firm. Then we stop her. He looked at her for a long moment. You're in deeper than I planned, he said. Maybe, Hannah replied, but I'm not walking away. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. All right, he said. Then, tonight, we go after her network. She blinked. Tonight? Yes, Adrian said. She moves fast. So do we. He slid the encrypted drive toward her. On here is a list of everyone she's met with in the last 18 months. Lunches, charity events, private meetings. Cross-reference it with foundation vendor records and see which ones match the payments you've been tracking. Hannah nodded slowly. You're thinking the same shell companies might connect to her directly. Exactly, he said. They worked side by side for hours, the daylight shifting into dusk outside. Names began to overlap. 3 companies in particular appeared in both Mara's meeting logs and the suspicious payment trails. Hannah circled them in red. These 3. They're the bridge. Adrian leaned over the table, his gaze fixed on the names. One of them is meeting Mara tomorrow night. Hannah looked at him. And you know where? I'll find out, he said. And when I do, we'll be there. Her pulse picked up. This is moving fast. Faster than she expects, Adrian replied. There was a knock at the door. Soft, hesitant. It wasn't security. It was James. He stepped in, closing the door behind him. You didn't hear it from me, he said quietly. But Daniel's not taking the leave quietly. He's meeting someone tonight, and it's not the board. Adrian straightened. Where? James hesitated. A bar in Koreatown. He reserved the back room. Adrian and Hannah exchanged a look. Sounds like we have plans tonight, Adrian said. Hannah took her coat from the chair. Guess we do. James glanced between them. Careful, Daniel's meaner when he's cornered. Hannah's reply was steady. So am I. They stepped out into the night, rain streaking the sidewalks, the city alive with 1,000 unseen deals, and one that was about to break wide open. The bar in Koreatown was the kind of place you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. A narrow doorway between a bakery and a karaoke lounge. Inside, low amber lights glowed over polished wood and framed photographs of old soul. The scent of grilled meat drifted from the kitchen, mixing with the hum of soft jazz. Adrian stepped in first, scanning the room. Hannah followed, her coat draped over one arm, trying to look like any other customer. A hostess approached with a polite bow. Table for 2? Adrian smiled faintly. We're meeting someone in the back room. The hostess hesitated, then gestured for them to follow. The back room was separated by a sliding wooden door with frosted panels. Through the blur of glass, Hannah saw shadows, 2 figures seated at a low table. One was Daniel. The other was Mara. Hannah's stomach tightened. Of course. Adrian glanced at her, then slid the door open without knocking. Daniel's expression barely flickered. Mara, you remember Adrian and Ms. Collins. Mara's smile was faint, but her eyes sharpened. Twice in one day, I must be charmed. Cut the pleasantries, Adrian said, stepping inside. What's your play? Daniel leaned back, feigning ease. We're having dinner. You're interrupting. And talking business while you do it, Hannah said. Mara's gaze shifted to her. You're bolder than I expected. Hannah met her stare. And you're more desperate than I expected. Daniel's smirk thinned. Careful, Collins, you're out of your depth. Funny, Hannah replied. That's exactly what people say when they're afraid someone's catching up. Adrian moved to the table, hands in his pockets. Let's stop pretending. Daniel, you were moving Foundation files out of the building. Mara, you've been feeding him cover. The question is, why? Mara folded her hands. Leverage, Adrian. That's all business ever is. You've built an empire on it yourself. I built trust, Adrian said. You sell it. Mara's tone stayed light. And what will you do when the people you trust turn on you? Clean house, Adrian replied. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You think you can touch me without burning yourself? Go ahead. I'll take enough down with me to leave this company bleeding. Hannah stepped forward, her voice steady. That's why you planted evidence on me, to make sure Adrian couldn't move without losing someone. Daniel shrugged. It was worth a try. Adrian's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, then looked back at Daniel. Security just finished reviewing the last 3 months of entry logs, he said. Turns out Ellen Park's badge was used by someone else after hours. Guess whose assistant was caught on camera doing it? Daniel's face went still. Mara's eyes flicked toward him, just for a moment, before returning to Adrian. So you have your culprit. Congratulations. No, Adrian said quietly. We have both of you. For the first time, Mara's smile faltered. You can't prove. I can, Adrian said, and I will. But I'd rather you hand me the list of shell companies you've been funneling payments through. Do that, and I might convince the board to handle this quietly. Daniel scoffed. You wouldn't risk making it public? Try me, Adrian said. The tension stretched, the quiet hum of the bar outside seeping through the door. Finally, Mara reached into her bag and slid a folded sheet across the table. Consider this goodwill. Adrian didn't touch it immediately. Why? Because, Mara said softly, some bridges are worth leaving unburned. Her eyes lingered on Hannah, unreadable, before she stood. Daniel rose too, but his glare toward Hannah promised the fight wasn't over. When they were gone, Adrian unfolded the paper. 3 company names, all on Hannah's list from earlier. They handed us the map, Hannah murmured. No, Adrian said. They handed us bait. The trick will be knowing which part is the trap. They left the bar without another word. The rain had stopped, but the streets were slick, neon reflections stretching along the asphalt. As they walked toward Adrian's car, Hannah glanced sideways at him. You didn't seem surprised to see them together. I wasn't, he said. I just didn't think they'd be careless enough to meet in public. Careless or confident? Adrian didn't answer right away. Confidence like that usually means there's one more card they think they can play. He unlocked the car. Hannah paused before getting in. Then we'd better figure out what it is before they do. Adrian looked at her, the city lights catching in his dark eyes. We will. They drove away, the folded sheet sitting between them on the console, a promise, a warning, and a race neither of them could afford to lose. The list sat between them on Adrian's desk like a silent dare. 3 company names, 3 different cities, 3 ways this could go wrong. Hannah leaned over the paper, tracing each name with her eyes. Which one do we start with? Adrian didn't answer right away. He was standing by the window, arms folded, gaze somewhere beyond the skyline. They want us to chase all 3, he said finally, because one's the real target, one's a decoy, and one's a dead end. Hannah straightened. So we don't start with any of them? We start with the people behind them, Adrian replied. He pulled a folder from the locked cabinet and set it in front of her. Inside were profiles, headshots, short bios, past business connections. All 3 companies are tied to the same private bank in Singapore, he said. But there's a missing link. Who connected Mara to them? Hannah scanned the profiles. Lawyers, accountants, consultants. Then she stopped. This one, she said, tapping a face. Peter Rhee. He's in the Foundation vendor list twice, and... She flipped to another page. In Mara's meeting log 3 times. Adrian leaned in. Peter's a fixer. He sets up shell companies and makes the money trail disappear. If he's tied to all three, then he's the bridge. The elevator dinged in the distance. Adrian closed the folder. We find Peter. We find the real company, but we have to move quietly. He'll vanish the second he hears Mara's in trouble. Hannah hesitated. What if she already told him? Adrian gave her a look. Then we'll know fast. They tracked Peter to an office on the Lower East Side. Small, discreet, the kind of place you'd pass without noticing. The receptionist barely looked up when they walked in. Do you have an appointment? Yes, Adrian said smoothly. Tell Peter Rhee that Adrian Kwan and Hannah Collins are here to discuss the foundation accounts. That got her attention. 5 minutes later, they were in a cramped office smelling faintly of coffee and old carpet. Peter Rhee was in his 50s, neat suit, eyes like glass. I don't know what you think I can tell you, Peter began, but Mara's business is her own. And Daniel's? Adrian asked. Peter's gaze didn't waver. Also not mine. Hannah leaned forward. We're not here to accuse you. We're here to warn you. Mara handed us 3 names. If she gave us real companies, we can work with that. But if she fed us a trap? Peter's mouth twitched. Then you're already in it. Adrian's voice was calm. Which one? Peter didn't answer. But his silence was too sharp. Hannah caught it. The tiniest pause when his eyes flicked to the middle name on the list. Anderson Strategic Holdings. That's it, Hannah said quietly. Peter's jaw tightened. You didn't hear it from me. Back at the office, Hannah pulled Anderson's records. They were almost too clean. No obvious shells, no odd payments, just enough transparency to seem legitimate. That's the point, Adrian said. A perfect surface to hide something underneath. Hannah clicked through archived vendor lists. Wait, here. 1 payment, Hannah said slowly. 6 months ago, supplier in South America. Labeled medical equipment. Adrian's expression darkened. Same quarter the cardiac device proposal came in. Her stomach tightened. So Mara's network, it's not just money? No, Adrian said. It's the devices, and they've already moved the first shipment. Hannah looked at him. If they're counterfeit, they are, Adrian said flatly. And if they end up in hospitals under the Foundation's name, the fallout could destroy us. They were still staring at the screen when Adrian's phone rang. Unknown number. He put it on speaker. A man's voice, low and urgent. If you want proof, meet me at Pier 39 tonight, midnight. Come alone. The line went dead. Hannah frowned. You're not going alone. That's exactly what I was thinking, Adrian said. But we'll make it look like I did. Her eyes narrowed. Anderson's connected to the pier, isn't it? Adrian nodded once. Their shipping records show a container docked there last week. If we're lucky, it's still there. The rest of the day was a blur, coordinating with security. Mapping the pier, arranging an unmarked car. By nightfall, the city felt sharper, like it knew something was about to snap. Hannah checked her watch. Midnight's in 2 hours. Adrian slipped on his coat. Plenty of time to set the stage. They parked 2 blocks from the water. The air smelled of salt and diesel, the tang sharp at the back of her throat. Fog rolled in from the bay, dampening the wooden planks under her shoes. Adrian walked ahead, his figure swallowed by the mist. Hannah stayed in the shadows, earpiece in place, tracking his every move. Footsteps echoed. A lone man stepped from behind a stack of crates. Older. Wearing a dock worker's jacket. You Adrian? Yes, Adrian said. The man glanced around, then held up a flash drive. Everything you need on Anderson's shipments, but you didn't get it from me. A sudden clang rang out. Metal on metal. From the fog, 2 more figures appeared. Daniel and Mara. Hannah's pulse spiked. Going somewhere? Daniel said, his voice carrying over the water. Mara's smile was slow. I told you, proximity is dangerous. Hannah's hand tightened around the small camera in her pocket. Whatever was about to happen, She had to capture it, because this time she had the feeling it could end everything. Osoriko furu. The fog curled low over the pier, swallowing light and sound. Adrian didn't move. Neither did Daniel. Mara stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the wet planks. "You came alone," she said, her gaze sliding around him. "Good. Saves me the trouble." Adrian's voice was calm, steady. "What's on that drive, Mara?" Her smile was faint. "Nothing you'll live long enough to use." From her position in the shadows, Hana's stomach tightened. The words weren't a bluff. She scanned the dock. No obvious weapons, but Daniel's hand stayed buried in his coat pocket. Adrian's gaze flicked toward it. "If you think threats will change my course, you haven't been paying attention." Daniel's smirk was sharp. "Not a threat, a guarantee." The dock worker who had the flash drive shifted nervously. "Hey, I didn't sign up for—" "Leave," Mara ordered without looking at him. He hesitated, then bolted into the fog. The tiny flash drive clattered to the planks, rolling toward Adrian's feet. He didn't bend to pick it up. Hana's heart thudded. She edged along a stack of crates until she was closer, camera still in hand. Mara took another step forward. "The problem with you, Adrian, is you think every game can be won by rules. But men like Daniel end up alone," Adrian cut in. Daniel's jaw twitched. "And men like you end up dead." Hana saw the moment Daniel's arm shifted inside his coat. She moved before thinking. Her voice rang out. "Drop it, Daniel." He didn't flinch when she stepped into the light, almost like he'd been expecting it. The plan to make it look like he came alone had lasted only minutes, but Adrian didn't seem to care anymore. All three heads turned toward her. Daniel's smirk vanished. "Of course, she's here?" Adrian's tone hardened. "Hana, I'm not hiding while you play target," she said, stepping into the thin circle of light spilling from a lamppost. Mara's eyes narrowed. "You should have stayed in the shadows, dear." "Funny," Hana replied. "That's exactly what Daniel's been trying to keep me in." Even with Mara's voice in my ear, it was Daniel's next move that could decide whether we walked out of here. Daniel's hand came free of his coat, not with a gun, but a small remote. He pressed the button. Somewhere behind the crates, metal groaned. A shipping container door swung open, revealing stacks of unmarked boxes. Hana's breath caught. The counterfeit devices. Mara tilted her head. "Proof, if you want it. But if that footage gets out, do you really think your board will forgive you for letting this happen on your watch?" Adrian didn't flinch. "I'd rather burn it all down than let you profit from it," Daniel laughed under his breath. Always the martyr. From the corner of her eye, Hana spotted movement. Two men approaching from the far end of the pier. Security? No. Too fast, too coordinated. Her pulse kicked up. "We've got company." Adrian's stance shifted. "Time to go." Mara smiled like she'd already won. "Yes, run along. We'll keep the pier warm for you." Daniel didn't look back as they stepped into the fog, the two approaching men falling in behind them. Hana darted to the container. She snapped quick photos of the boxes, every label, every serial number. The flash drive lay on the ground. She grabbed it and shoved it into her pocket. "Move!" Adrian's voice cut through the fog, sharp and urgent. She turned. Two men had spotted her. They were quickening their pace. Adrian grabbed her wrist and pulled her into the fog, weaving between crates. Footsteps pounded behind them. A shout rang out. "There!" But the mist swallowed everything in seconds. They broke into a run, the sound of the bay slapping against the pylons below. At the end of the pier, Adrian yanked open a service door and shoved her inside. They burst into a narrow maintenance corridor lit by a single flickering bulb. Hana leaned against the wall, catching her breath. "Tell me we got enough." Adrian pulled the flash drive from her pocket, holding it up. "We did. But now they know we have it." She swallowed hard. "Then they won't stop." "No," Adrian agreed. "And neither will we." The sound of footsteps faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of the city waking up just beyond the bay. When they emerged onto the street, their car was still where they'd left it. Hannah slid into the passenger seat, the flash drive clutched in her hand. Adrian started the engine. "We go straight to my secure office. No stops, no calls." She nodded, staring out at the slick pavement rushing past. Her voice was quiet. "You know this won't end with Mara." "I know," he said, "but if we break this chain here, the rest will collapse." "And if it doesn't?" Adrian glanced at her. "Then we fight until it does." The city swallowed them again, lights blurring in the rain. Somewhere behind, the pier settled back into its quiet, fog wrapping over the crates like nothing had happened. But in Hannah's chest, the storm was just beginning. The secure office was buried in the sub-level of Quan Enterprises, a room most employees didn't even know existed. Concrete walls. No windows, only a reinforced door and a steel table under bright, cold light. Adrian closed the door behind them and set the flash drive in the center of the table. "No network connection," he said. "Nothing leaves here unless we walk it out ourselves." Hannah sat opposite him, the faint hum of the overhead light filling the silence. "Let's see what they're so afraid of." Adrian plugged the drive into a laptop already isolated from the company network. Folders appeared instantly. Encrypted, but not enough to slow him. One by one, documents opened. Invoices, shipping manifests, purchase orders linking Anderson's strategic holdings to shell suppliers in South America, Eastern Europe and Asia. Every shipment labeled medical equipment, every destination, tied to the foundation. Hannah's throat tightened. They're everywhere. Adrian's voice was low. Hospitals, clinics, outreach programs. Hannah's brow furrowed. "All of them." "Every single one," Adrian said, "and every shipment is a counterfeit device waiting to fail." "And all under your mother's name," Hannah murmured. Adrian's jaw clenched. Not for long. She kept scrolling. One folder was different. No labels, just a date. The files inside were email chains between Mara, Daniel, and a half-dozen names they didn't recognize. Offshore attorneys, consultants, and one board member. Hannah froze. "Adrian, this isn't just Daniel and Mara." Adrian leaned in. His eyes hardened as he read. "It's inside the board," she pointed to one name. "Roth?" Adrian exhaled through his nose. "Of course. Of course. He's been pushing for more aggressive partnerships for months. Mara's his shortcut. If this came out publicly, the scandal would be enough to force me out, and he'd take my seat." Hannah stared at the screen. "So they're not just making money. They're clearing the boardroom." Adrian shut the laptop. "We can't go through official channels. Roth will bury it before it sees daylight." "So, what's the plan?" Hannah asked. He looked at her for a long moment. "We hit them where it hurts. Public trust." Her brow furrowed. "Her. You mean leak it?" "Yes," Adrian said, "but not to the press, not yet." He paced the room. "If we leak to the Foundation's top donors first, the backlash will be immediate. They'll demand answers before Roth or Mara can spin it." Hannah nodded slowly. "And once the donors are against them, the board won't have cover." "Exactly," Adrian said. "It forces them into defense before they can move against us." She hesitated. "That's a big risk, if this turns even slightly." "It won't," Adrian said, "because you'll be the one delivering it." Hannah blinked. "Me? They've already tried to paint you as compromised. This turns it, shows you were the one protecting the Foundation." Her pulse kicked up. "So I walk into a donor meeting with proof that half the board's in bed with Mara?" "Yes," Adrian said simply. She let out a slow breath. "When?" "Tonight." Hours later, Hannah stood in a private dining room at a high-rise hotel, the city glittering beyond the glass. The Foundation's top donors, 20 of them, sat around a polished mahogany table. Adrian was there too, silent at the far end, letting her take the floor. She laid the printouts on the table one by one. Invoices, manifests, emails. "This," she said, "is how your donations are being used. Counterfeit medical devices, false partnerships." Murmurs rippled through the room, all routed through shell companies, Hannah continued, tied to two individuals, Mara and Daniel. She let the last name drop like a stone. And one board member, Roth. Murmurs rippled through the room. One woman leaned forward. "How do we know this is real?" Hannah met her eyes. "Because I found it myself, and because the people involved tried to frame me for stealing it." She gestured toward Adrian. "Mr. Kwan and I have verified every record. If you want the truth, you can have every file. But you need to demand answers now, before these devices reach a single patient." Silence fell. Then an older man stood. "I've funded this foundation for 20 years. If what you're saying is true," Roth's finished. "And so are the others," another voice joined him. "I want an emergency board meeting, tomorrow morning." Hannah nodded. "You'll have my full report before then." The meeting broke in a wave of sharp conversations and hushed phone calls. When the room emptied, Adrian crossed to her. "You were flawless," he said. Her voice was quiet. "It's not over." "No," he agreed, "but tonight we broke the chain." They stepped into the cool night air, the city roaring below. Hannah felt the tension still in her shoulders, the weight of what was coming next. "What if Roth pushes back harder?" she asked. Adrian's gaze was steady. "Then we push harder." He paused, his voice softer now. "And Hannah, this is what I meant when I told you to fix my heart." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered and froze. Mara's voice was smooth in her ear. "Nice speech tonight, but you should know Daniel's not done, and the next move isn't in your boardroom." The line went dead. Hannah looked at Adrian, her pulse racing. "She knows about the meeting," Hannah said, "and she's planning something else." Adrian's eyes darkened. "Then tomorrow we end this." Morning broke with a steel-gray sky stretched tight over Manhattan, the kind of cold light that makes every shadow sharper. Hannah stood by her window, coffee cooling in her hand, watching the traffic below move like clockwork. But inside her chest, nothing felt orderly. Mara's words still echoed from the night before. "The next move isn't in your boardroom." She had no idea what Mara meant, but she knew enough to believe it was a warning. Or a threat, maybe both. When Hannah arrived at Kwan Enterprises, the building was already awake, with an unusual hum. Security was posted at every entrance. Reporters lingered outside the glass doors, cameras poised for a story. On the top floor, the hallway outside the boardroom was crowded with assistants, legal counsel, and a few donors who'd been invited as observers. It was a battlefield disguised in suits and silk ties. Adrian was already inside, standing at the head of the long, polished table. He didn't sit. He rarely did when the stakes were high. Members of the board filed in one by one. Some avoided his eyes, others gave curt nods. Roth entered last, his face unreadable, but there was an edge to his movements. He greeted no one, but took his seat with the air of someone certain the day would end in his favor. "Let's proceed," Roth said, glancing around the table. "We've all seen Ms. Collins's presentation." Hannah sat near Adrian, hands folded to keep from tapping against the table. Adrian's voice was calm, even. "Then you know what's at stake. Counterfeit devices tied to the Foundation's name. The damage to patients, and to the trust this organization stands for, would be catastrophic." Roth's faint smile carried the kind of confidence born from too many close calls survived. "What I know is that you've allowed an unvetted employee to access sensitive data without authorization. That alone warrants immediate dismissal." Before Adrian could respond, the double doors at the far end opened. Two uninvited guests stepped inside, Mara and Daniel. The air in the room tightened like a wire. Mara's heels clicked against the hardwood as she walked the length of the table. "This meeting," she said, is about to be more productive than you expected." Roth didn't stop her, and that told Hannah more than any words could. Daniel carried a slim black briefcase, which he placed on the table before sliding into a chair beside Roth. Mara, however, remained standing. She set a folder in front of each board member, moving with deliberate slowness, as if savoring the moment. "These," Mara said smoothly, "are the real numbers, not the fairy tales you've been fed." Inside the folders were printouts of transactions, and on paper, they tied Adrian directly to the fraudulent shipments. Adrian didn't so much as glance down. "Convenient," he said. "Frame me, then ride in to save the day." Daniel leaned back in his chair, fingers laced. "It's not a frame if it's true, and unlike you, we have signatures." Hannah leaned forward, voice steady. "Forgeries." Daniel arched a brow. "Prove it." She didn't look away. "Gladly." From her bag she withdrew a compact portable scanner and placed one of the documents under it. The display lit up with digital overlays, highlighting inconsistencies invisible to the naked eye. "Every signature here was lifted from older contracts," Hannah explained, turning the display toward the board. "The stroke patterns are identical. The imperfections repeat in the exact same pixel sequence. This isn't my opinion. It's forensic proof." The room was silent for 3 full seconds. Then one of the board members turned to Roth. "You gave us forged documents?" Roth's lips thinned. "This is absurd. Clearly she—" Adrian cut in, his tone like ice. "No, Roth. What's absurd is thinking you could pull this off in my house." He pointed to the door. 2 security officers entered, their presence quiet but commanding. "Daniel Lee, Mara Ellison, you are trespassing. Mr. Roth, your board privileges are suspended pending a full investigation." Daniel rose slowly, the smirk gone from his face. "This isn't over, Adrian." Adrian stepped closer. "Yes, Daniel, it is." Mara didn't resist as the guards moved to escort her out. But she did pause beside Hannah, lowering her voice just enough for only her to hear. "Enjoy your win," Mara murmured. "You'll find it's lonelier than you think." Hannah's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Sometimes silence was the sharpest blade. When the doors closed behind them, Adrian faced the board again. "You have the proof," he said. "You have the trail. Now you have a choice. Protect the foundation or watch it burn." The weight of the moment pressed in, one by one. Heads nodded. The vote was taken, and it was unanimous. Roth was out. For the first time in weeks, Daniel and Mara were out of the room. But Roth had been the one pulling the strings today, and now he'd finally lost the board. When the meeting adjourned, Hannah followed Adrian to the quiet room, where the hum of the city was a distant thing behind glass and steel. For the first time since the pier, she felt her shoulders begin to loosen. Adrian loosened his tie and leaned against the table. "You saved the foundation, Hannah. You saved my family's name." His voice caught for just a fraction of a second. She smiled, trying to break the intensity. "Guess I'm not so disposable after all." His reply was quiet, almost too quiet. "Not to me." She shook her head. "We saved it. You didn't give up on me when it would have been easier to believe Daniel's lies." He studied her for a long moment, the corners of his mouth softening. "You could go anywhere now," he said, "and any company would take you." "I'm not going anywhere," she replied. "Not while there's still work to do here?" Something in his expression shifted, a subtle drop of the guard he wore so carefully. "Then maybe," Adrian said quietly, "we fix my heart after all." They stood there for a moment longer than necessary, the city moving somewhere far below them. But neither of them seemed in a hurry to leave. It wasn't about contracts or board votes anymore. It was about trust, the kind you don't buy, don't bargain for, the kind you protect. Hannah realized then that whatever battles still lay ahead, they'd be standing side by side. Outside, the steel sky broke just enough for a shard of sunlight to cut across the skyline. Adrian took her hand, warm and steady. He glanced at the horizon, then at her. Ready for the next chapter? She smiled, a little tired, a lot certain. Always. The end. If you were Hannah, would you have taken the risk to stand in front of the donors, or stayed behind the scenes? Let me know in the comments, because maybe your story is the one someone else needs to hear, and if this story touched your heart in any way. Leave a like, subscribe for more stories like this, and rate this story from to 10 in the comments. I'd love to know how it made you feel. You matter. Your voice matters, and your presence here means more than you know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.